Gotta stop him.
There's always more to the story.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
And there's always more to say.
Don't ever bring that nonsense in here again.
When going too far feels closer.
Maybe I overdid it.
This space thrives on the restricted. This is the Restricted Area with Robert Guerra.
Live here of the Restricted Area podcast with me, Robert Guerra, Rob G, if you're nasty, coming to you live from sunny Southern California. Once again, America, thank you so much for taking this ride with me. We're having a great time about a month in, and feedback has been really, really good. So I appreciate it. I just wanted to let you know, confirm a little housekeeping before we get to the show. Chris Broussard is confirmed for next week. Episode 6, he will be popping on the Restricted Area. The very first guest on our show is going to be CB. Really excited to get him on. We're going to record it earlier in the week, so maybe we'll drop the episode earlier than expected. Be on the lookout for that. Either way, I'll keep you posted. But my people talk to his people, and CB is locked and loaded. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to this week's topics. I wanted to start off with something that, full disclosure, happened about a week ago now. And it was my mistake, honestly. Well, not my mistake, but when I dropped episode number 4, I thought I had some really strong opinions. I thought I had some good topics. And then the Tiger Woods news broke. And needless to say, my show did not do the numbers I'm accustomed to because I did not address the biggest story of the week. And normally when something like that happens, I would kind of just let it float off into the ether. You know, you win some, you lose some. It was a missed opportunity. But in this case, I have a personal connection to this Tiger Woods story. So I wanted to share my thoughts on that one to get things started here. Now, in case you've been living under a rock, last week, Tiger Woods was involved in another DUI motor vehicle accident. It is now the 4th different time, at least 4 that we know of, but the 4th time that he's been involved in such an incident while allegedly being under the influence. All right. Thanksgiving 2009, of course, crashed into a fire hydrant, and then his then wife had to break the window with a golf club to get him out. So we all remember that one. That's what spawned the downfall of Tiger Woods, where the affairs kind of became exposed and so on and so forth. Memorial Day 2017. He's found passed out in his car in the middle of a traffic lane with the engine running. 2021, flips his car down an embankment while driving more than double the speed limit here in the hills of California. And first responders at the time said that he was lucky to even be alive, given how fast he was going, how far he rolled down the hill. And there was conflicting reports about whether or not the jaws of life were used. It turns out they weren't, but that it was a very serious, critical incident. He required multiple surgeries to even be able to walk again. And then most recently, again, last week, 2026, flips his car again when he clipped a truck trailer. Now, in the aftermath of the most recent wreck, Tiger issued a statement saying that he's going to step away from golf to, quote, seek treatment and focus on my health. This is necessary in order for me to prioritize my well-being and work towards lasting recovery. Now, again, I said the reason why I wanted to start off with this story, even though it is about a week old, is because it is a very personal one for me. I have people close to me with a history of addiction, several people actually, and unfortunately, I have lost several family members to addiction. So, again, this is something that I could not just let disappear, right? And when I see statements like Tiger Woods' most recent one, the one he put out, it just really makes my skin crawl. Like, it makes me itch. It makes me uncomfortable. I can feel the hairs on my arm stand up because I know that it's not legit. I know that. My experience dealing with people with addiction tells me that he does not really want help. He doesn't. Because if he really wanted help, he wouldn't have come up with some cockamamie story about, oh, well, I was just trying to change the radio station. You know, I was looking at my cell phone. That's the only reason why I hit that trailer and I flipped my car. No. If he really wanted help, he would not insist on entering a not guilty plea every single time this happens. acting like, well, I didn't really do anything wrong because, nobody else was harmed. So no harm, no foul. It is what it is. If it's just me, it's not really that bad. So I'm not really guilty of anything. Yeah, I've heard that story before too. If Tiger really wanted help, he would have had a show for it after the first time. He would have had a driver. Like we all know he can afford it. He's worth $1 billion. He's been in the limelight since he was like 15 years old. But instead, he's refusing to hire drivers even now, even after this most recent incident, because according to reports, he, quote, doesn't want anyone to watch over him or know what he's doing. Yeah, I've heard that before too. Dealing with people who are addicts, they don't like people being in their business. They don't like people knowing what's really going on in the day to day. They don't like people knowing where they're at. Back in the day before we had cell phones, they would just go on they'd be missing for hours, maybe even days on end. Or now when you have cell phones and they just turn off their location. Yeah, they don't want to know. They don't like people knowing where they're at. If Tiger really wanted help, he wouldn't be insisting on going to a treatment facility outside of the United States due to privacy concerns. Tiger, you've been in the public eye for decades. Tiger, you are not just a United States local celebrity. You are a global celebrity. You are known everywhere. You might even be bigger in Asia than you are here because of your heritage. There's no privacy for Tiger Woods. What he's doing is he's trying to go somewhere where he can, under the guise of privacy, go to some cushy, outpatient. You come and go as you please. You're not really being treated for anything. You're just kind of saying that you're doing it. But more importantly, if Tiger really wanted help, like he claims, he would not have surrounded himself with so many enablers, which he's done forever now. Every time this happens, and this is now the fourth one that we know about, and in my experience, the ones that get caught, like there's 5 more in between each one. In my experience of dealing with people who have addictions and have these kind of DUI under the influence type of situations. When I'm dealing with addicts, it's never just the times they got caught that they were doing it. That's just when they got caught. They got caught because they were sloppy, but they've been doing this almost day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out. This is part of their life. And yet, every time this happens with Tiger Woods, we get a new excuse put out by his agent or his publicist or whoever. Oh, well, he was so distraught. His marriage is falling apart. I mean, haven't you been watching the news? Oh my God, he's got so many surgeries. He's always in pain. That's why he needs all the meds. He can't sleep. He's just so stressed out. He has insomnia. He's really a victim in all this. Then haven't you ever had insomnia? You know how stressed out he is? He's a public figure. Stop covering for this man. Sorry. He has a drug problem. He is an addict. And until he can admit it, things like this are going to keep happening. Instead of going off to parts unknown to get some treatment facility that probably doesn't do anything, he needs to go to his local AA meeting, NA meeting. Hi, I'm Eldrick Tiger Woods, and I'm addicted to prescription medications. Period. It was Ambien in 2009, Vicodin and Xanax in 2017, hydrocodone last week. Hell, the only one that isn't alleged to have involved prescription drug abuse is 2021, where he rolled down the hill here in Southern California. And that's only because the investigators didn't get the warrant they needed to get his blood sample. I promise you, if they had followed the procedure, we'd find out there was another prescription medication involved in 2021. When is enough going to be enough, man? This is the same question that I asked the people close to me over the years. Does one of his kids have to be in the car when something like this happens? Does he have to die? God forbid, does he have to kill somebody else for him to understand, like, you know what? Shit. Sorry for cursing. Like, I have a problem. I am an addict. I can't control myself. I've developed a dependency to prescription medications. I don't care that Tiger Woods got 15 majors. I don't care that he's the most celebrated athlete of my lifetime. I don't care that he's worth $1 billion. He doesn't get a pass from me. This is too personal for me to just let this one slide and sweep it under the rug and say, well, it's just another incident of an athlete behaving badly. It is what it is. No, not for me. Not for me. This means too much to me. Tiger Woods is a danger to himself and those around him. And no one wants to say it because he's being treated like it's a Greek tragedy. The fall of Tiger Woods, the guy who was the greatest golfer who ever lived, victim to womanizing and drugs and injury. Not to me. He's a guy with a problem. He's an addict. He does not belong in some cushy outpatient facility overseas. He belongs in jail, if we're going to be honest with it. He belongs behind bars, locked down somewhere for a period of time so that he can finally have some sense knocked into him and understand what he's doing to himself, to those around him, and to the rest of the world at large. He's irresponsible. He's reckless. It's disappointing, man. I don't know how to I don't know how to transition out of that one, but yeah, it's a serious topic for me. Sorry. The other story I wanted to get to, it comes out of the NFL, and ESPN's Jeremy Fowler did a long form piece that came out earlier this week regarding the Eagles' offensive issues, right? Like that they've been well documented. Their offense has been kind of stuck in mud for about a year and a half now, even after winning the Super Bowl. And according to this piece by Fowler, a big reason why the Eagles have been grounded, you like that one, is because of Jalen Hurts. And according to Fowler, Hurts has had a hand in the offense in Philly, turning into, quote, a disaster, and the passing game becoming, quote, calcified. And he's done so by pushing back on changes to diversify the scheme. He doesn't like motion. He doesn't like shifting. He doesn't like going under center. He doesn't like throwing against his own defense. He doesn't like, he'll change the play calls to more basic concepts because that's what he prefers. He doesn't like throwing over the middle. He doesn't even like running the ball anymore, even though that's one of the things that makes him so dangerous and makes him such a threat as a quarterback. He's a dual threat quarterback who doesn't use the dual part of it. He'd rather, outside of the tush push, he just doesn't run anymore. And all of these things, like none of it's new. Like these are things that have been reported for several months, even dating back to the middle of last season. Like we've kind of known for a while that Jalen Hurts can be a little rigid, can be a little difficult to work with in that he just likes what he likes, and that's not unusual for a quarterback. I guess it's unusual to have that kind of attitude when your passing offense is as rudimentary as it is. That's what makes it stand out. And that's probably a big reason why they got stuck with a guy like Sean Mannion, who has never called plays before as their new OC. And you'll recall it was actually reported that both Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll, seen as the two brightest offensive minds available on the market during this hiring cycle, both said no to the Eagles flat out, despite being told and assured that they would have full autonomy over the offense. Nick Sirianni is like, I'll be hands off. I will just focus on clock management and challenges and rah or whatever. You are in charge of the offense. And both of those guys said, nah, I'm good. They're saying no to an offense that includes the best running back in football, Saquon Barkley, 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, one of the best offensive lines in football, right? Like they said no to all of that because of the quarterback, because they do not feel like they can be the best versions of themselves as play callers with him under center. And a lot of it comes down to, like, this is something that you'll learn as you cover the NFL or you're around the NFL and you watch the NFL, is that when it comes to head coaches, or excuse me, when it comes to offensive coordinators, you are judged on your genius level more than wins and losses. Head coaches are judged by wins and losses. Coordinators are judged on how diverse your attack is, how varied your attack is, what kind of production you get from offense. Like, Ben Johnson does not become the hottest head coaching candidate we had seen in years out of Detroit if the Lions don't have one of the best offenses in football. They could have the exact same record. They could have been 13-4 every year with an offense that was, 12th. And that's not going to help him get, well, he might still get a job, but he's not going to be like people falling over to hire Ben Johnson. No, he got the job and he was offered big money by everybody. And he had his pick of the litter for several years because his offense was seen as, revolutionary. The things he was doing, he was calling trick plays. They have a varied rushing attack. He made Jared Goff, one of the best pocket quarterbacks in the NFL, point blank period, right? That's how you get paid. And these guys, McDaniel and Daboll, determine that they cannot show up and show out the way that they want to if they are being neutered by Jalen Hurts and his refusal to be open to motions, open to shifts, throwing into zone, so on and so on. So the Eagles, bring back to Philly, have 4 players on their offense who are among the top 3 highest paid players of their position. And 6 of them are in the top 10. So it's not just that they have a star-studded offense. They have a highly paid star-studded offense. And even still, they had a hard time attracting a top-notch offensive coordinator because, as one anonymous source told Jeremy Fowler, the quarterback, being Jalen Hurts, quote, has poor body language, is not always bought in, and is not the most coachable. That's crazy, right? Like, you would think, given the talent and the resources that they have in Philly, it would make zero sense as to why their offense, their passing offense, would go from 16th and 23 to 29th and 24. And that their total offense would go from 8th and 23 to 24th and 25. 24th and 2025, in case that was unclear, right? Like, you have way too much talent, way too much invested on that side of the ball for you to be that mediocre offensively. And by all accounts, all signs point to Jalen Hurts. Now, the counter to that would be like, well, have you seen his playoff record? I have. He's one of the great playoff performers of this generation. Like, when the lights are the brightest, you get the best Jalen Hurts. There's nothing to take away from that. And someone else might say, well, hey, did you see the last 4 games of the year? Including that playoff game? Jalen Hurts had 7 touchdowns and no picks. He only lost to the Niners by 4 points. Did you forget? Did you forget that? And to which I'll say, did you forget that he passed for 159 yards per game during that stretch? Did you forget about that? Or that in the 5 games before that, the Eagles offense averaged 16 points per game? 16? And that during that stretch, Jalen Hurts had 4 touchdowns and 5 picks? Yeah, you bet you didn't know that part, did you? Look, back in November, a longtime Eagles beat writer, Derek Gunn, been there for decades, right? He called the Hurts situation Carson Wentz Part 2. Now, not because they're the same players or even similar players. I mean, hell, Jalen Hurts has had more success than Carson Wentz could ever dream of. Like, his playoff, I just mentioned, his playoff record and his statistics are unmatched. Carson Wentz cannot sniff anything like that. But what Gunn was referring to is that when the Eagles had Carson Wentz, they were a very good team. Like, he wasn't the quarterback when he won the Super Bowl, but he was at the controls of a Super Bowl roster there in Philly. And what Gunn was saying is that when it came to Carson Wentz, the Eagles became handcuffed financially by Carson Wentz because of the cap hit. That because they paid him so early that they felt like they were stuck with him. And they couldn't move on and they couldn't evolve. And that's a big reason why they had to move off of Nick Foles, even though he had just won a Super Bowl for them. because they had already committed to Carson Wentz. And that's totally fair. And to which I'll say, hey, dumping Jalen Hurts after the season would lead to a $67 million dead cap hit. But lest we forget, if you are a follower of this podcast, if you are a P1 listener, as the expression goes in the media biz, episode 2, I told you, NFL teams are moving on from quarterbacks faster than ever. They are no longer married to bad decisions. J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota, drafted in the top 10 2 years ago. All signs point to him being out. He is now the backup to Kyler Murray. Moved to the Falcons. Michael Penix Jr., taken 8th overall, and they signed Kirk Cousins to a big deal. Kirk Cousins, gone, just signed with my Raiders. Michael Penix Jr. looks like he's going to be the backup to Tua. Speaking of Tua, in Miami, the Dolphins decided they'd rather take a $99 million cap hit than keep Tua. Gone. Tua's gone. As Joe Dumars once said, former NBA player, won a couple of chips with the Pistons, and one of the great executives of the early 2000s. It's not about being right. It's about getting it right. And I think Howie Roseman and the Eagles front office are hell-bent on getting it right. I think that they know deep down that giving Jalen Hurts that big contract was a mistake, that he has not progressed the way that they needed him to. As a result, I would not be surprised if at the upcoming NFL draft here in a couple of weeks, the Eagles take a quarterback on day 2. Just like they did in 2020 when they had Carson Wentz eating up cap space, and they decided they're going to replace him with a guy named Jalen Hurts. We've seen this story before. The Eagles roster is loaded. And if you were to ask me and you ask people around the franchise, the organization, I think they know that they have a window that is 2 to 3 years because of how they've structured their contracts. But if they want to extend that window, they want to open it up just a little bit wider. All they got to do is reset at the quarterback position, get a new guy in there, take your medicine for one off season, and start fresh. And I think that's what they're going to do. I really do. I think come round 2, round 3, you are going to see the Philadelphia Eagles send in a card that says Drew Aller, Nussmeier, Klubnik, one of these guys who was viewed as a super talent entering in the college football season last year, and either because of injury or ineffectiveness kind of saw his stock fall. I could see the Eagles making a run at one of those guys, letting them sit for a year, and then in 2027, they have a new quarterback in Philadelphia. All right, I was going to close the show with some NBA MVP talk, but I've kind of decided like that's been done ad nauseum. Like that's been talked about a lot really over the last week, with guys campaigning for awards. And then I also figured that by the time you get this podcast and you listen to it, we may have already seen a few of these guys square off head to head, like Luka and Shea a couple of times. You might have seen Wemby and Jokic a couple of times. Like, so I'm going to pause on that. And the other thing I was thinking is that I have been promising this mailbag segment for like 3 weeks. And I know what it means when you keep promising and failing to deliver. You lose the trust of the audience. So without further ado, here comes the first installment of the restricted area mailbag.
You've got mail.
Oh my God, I'm your biggest fan.
It's time for some fan mail.
Hell yeah. I got an intro and everything. Look, we're all professional out here on the restricted area. All right. Again, if you didn't get a chance to write in, the DMs, the tweets are open both on X and on Instagram at the producer RG. And I'm going to read maybe 5 or 6 of them to get through here to the end of the show. So Jake writes in, how the hell can you put Magic Johnson 6th on your all-time list? You're not a real Laker fan. If you recall last week on last week's episode, I said I had Magic Johnson 6th. And I would assume, Jake, that you have no issue with the first three. I'm assuming, right? Because I feel like it seems to be generally accepted that the first three in order is Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I assume that there's no debate there. I'm assuming, Jake, that your issue lies with me putting Kobe and Duncan ahead of Magic. I'm guessing. And to which I'll answer like this. Longevity matters. That's part of it. Unfortunately, Magic Johnson, due to the AIDS virus, had his career cut short. And were he able to continue his career at the rate he was going, it's entirely possible, if not likely, that not only would he be in my top 5, but he'd have a very, very strong case to be the greatest player who ever lived. Like 10-time All NBA, multiple MVPs, multiple finals MVPs, was in the finals every year of the decade of the 80s and finished with 5 rings. So of course, right? That's part of it. Here's the other part. To quote Victor Wembanyama, defense is 50% of the game in the NBA. And for all of Magic's offensive wizardry, his gifts, his passing ability, he was not a great defender. Just wasn't. And if you look at Duncan and Kobe, first off, the longevity factor. Magic was a 10-time All-NBA player. Duncan and Kobe were each 15-time. So that matters. Like that has to factor in. Here's the bigger thing, though. Kobe Bryant was a 12-time All-Defensive Team player, 9-time first team. Tim Duncan was a 15-time All-Defensive player, 8-time first team. You can't only focus on offense and not focus on defense. And both of those guys were phenomenal defenders. Now, Magic and Kobe offensively might be pretty close. Magic's creativity and Kobe's scoring ability, so maybe call that a wash. But Kobe's defense far surpasses anything that Magic can do. And you might say, well, Magic is clearly a better offensive player than Tim Duncan. And that's fair. But Tim Duncan is clearly a better defensive player than Magic Johnson. And the gap between Timmy's defense versus Magic and Timmy's offense versus Magic's is not so close where I would lean Magic. I got to go Tim Duncan. So that's my rationale as to why Magic Johnson would be 6th behind Kobe and Duncan in my top 5. Question number 2. Sean asks, wrong button, Bob. What's been your favorite show to produce at Fox? Oh, Sean must be a long time follower of my career, because wrong button, Bob goes back to when I was producing with Ben Maller late nights, overnights on Fox Sports Radio. Shout out to Ben Maller. Ben Maller's great. Ben Maller is one of the most slept on talents in all of sports media. And I don't say slept on because on overnights. I mean, he is just phenomenal. And it's just, I feel like he should be a bigger star than even what he is. And he is a huge star, but I feel like Ben is awesome. But to answer your question, Sean, well, back up. The reason why they call me Wrong Button Bond, funny story, is that when I was producing Ben's show, we had a connectivity issue with the internet, and Ben says, hey, can you go ahead and reset the Wi-Fi? Sure, no problem. I'll walk back there. I don't know what I'm doing, but I find the rack room. I look for one that says server, because that's usually what I do at home. Reset, walk back, all good. So I do it, see one that says A serve, reset, walk back to the studio, saunter in like, yeah, I just saved the day. And lo and behold, the A serve was what controls the entire network, not the internet. And I shut down the Fox Sports Radio station for like 3 minutes. So for 3 minutes, they had to replay old March Madness updates instead of what was going on the show. So that's how I got the nickname. But to answer your question, Sean, my favorite show to work on, and I've worked on a lot, has to be The Odd Couple. And I'm not saying that just because I work on it now, but I mean, more specifically, the first like 2 years of The Odd Couple, when it was Chris Broussard and Rob Parker, because we came out like a bat out of hell, is what I used to say. Like, we came out guns a-blazing. We were making headlines every other day. We were included in the Patriots hype video ahead of the Super Bowl. We were going viral on Twitter, a lot. And we just had an energy and a vibe that sounded so much different than every other show that had been out at that time. And it was the first time in my career, at least, that I had that much ownership over a show as a producer. Before that, it was a lot of just, hey, Ben has a a system that works, just kind of be in a support capacity. JT and Looney have a system that works, just kind of be in a support capacity. Andy and Mike, like you can do some stuff with them, but they kind of have their thing going already. It's a good thing. Don't mess it up. But with these guys, it was a brand new show, starting from scratch, and my fingerprints were all over that show. And I thought that we had created magic there for the first few years. And it's still a good show. And it was still a good show, even the years and up to now, what we have with Rob and Kelvin. But like anything, when COVID hit and we were no longer all in the studio together, you can try to manufacture that energy. It just, realistically, you can't duplicate it. And so not having everybody in studio together all at the same time, and the energy and the camaraderie that you can't get that on Zoom. And so that's why I say my favorite show to produce is The Odd Couple with Broussard and Parker, but like specifically the first 2 or 3 years of that show. Question number 3, Kevin writes in, did you really just compare John Shire to Doc Rivers? Did you forget Doc has a ring? Typical Lakers homer, anything to dump on this. See, the first question said that I'm a fake Lakers fan. Now this guy's calling me a Lakers homer. The duality of man, I swear. Kevin, I'll say this. You're right. It was disrespectful of me to compare John Shire to Doc Rivers. Full disclosure, I'll own that. But it was disrespectful to John Shire. Doc Rivers sucks, man. He's terrible. Doc Rivers' teams have blown 5-3-2 leads, 1-2-0 lead, and has lost Game 7 at home 4 different times. He's terrible. And then he has the audacity to say, well, instead of focusing on me blowing the 3-1 leads, how about you focus on me even going up 3-1? Because that's hard to do too. Like, get the heck out of here, Doc Rivers. And then here's the worst part of it. Here's the list of players that Doc Rivers had either in their primes or towards the tail end of their prime. This is not like early where he wasn't quite ready, or late career where he was clear that he was washed up. Here are the guys that Doc had: Tracy McGrady, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Rajon Rondo, Ray Allen, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Joel Embiid, James Harden, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard. I think all of those guys are going to be in the Hall of Fame if they're not already. And yet, Doc Rivers has exactly 1 championship to show for it. Nobody does less with more than Doc Rivers. He is terrible. He is overrated. And the fact that he's making it into the Hall of Fame is blasphemous. And it just shows that the Basketball Hall of Fame is the easiest Hall of Fame to get into in all of sports. Sucks. Vinny asks, I've heard on the Straight Fire podcast you say something about March Madness being bad. Explain. Well, first off, Vinny, thank you for consuming the other things that I do. Straight Fire with Jason McIntyre. We've been doing that podcast daily now for, I think, like 5 years. So thank you. I appreciate you for transitioning from one outlet to the next. And maybe you misheard me, because I don't think March Madness is bad. What I do think is that March Madness is a terrible way to crown a champion in college basketball, because what it does is it makes the regular season basically meaningless, right? There's a reason why in the NBA, the playoffs were best of 5, and now they're all best of 7, because the best team historically is going to win when you play each other 5-7 times. Like, the percentages are going to even out so that the best team almost always wins. In a one and done format, anything can happen. Anything. And you can have a situation like how we saw last week with Duke, where Duke was clearly the better team. They have been the better team all season long. They were seeded as such in the tournament. And they had a horrific final 20 minutes and an even worse final 10 seconds. And as a result, UConn moves on and Duke goes home. And that's the problem with March Madness, is that what's the point of playing 40 regular season games if all that matters is whether or not you got hot for 6 games in March? Like, there's no reason why your champion should be defined as the team that had a good 6 games and not a team that had the best season. right? That's my issue with March Madness. I think if they were to get rid of the 64 or 68 team format and make it a 16 team format, and every series was like 3 games, I think that'd be a better way of crowning a champion. It'd be less entertaining, right? Because people like the upsets and the drama of the one and done. I totally get that. But if your goal is to actually find the best team, then it has to be a series format. It can't be one and done. We're going pretty late here. I'm just going to do one more. Brandon writes in, where are the sound clips from in your show intro? That voice sounds familiar. Brandon, I'm glad you asked that question. The drops you hear in my intro, you got to stop them. You got to stop them. Or maybe I went too far. Las Vegas, the greatest movie in cinema history, starring Morgan Freeman, Kevin Kline, Al Pacino, Michael Douglas. For my money, the greatest movie of all time. If you don't know what it's about, look it up, but I'll give you a quick crash course. 4 dudes, all in their late 60s, early 70s, having a bachelor party in Vegas. Can you find a better premise than that? I'll wait. No, you can't. No, you can't. Obviously, shenanigans ensue. There's some, emotionality because they're all longtime friends. There's a lot of humor. There's action. There's fight scenes. There's gambling scenes. Like everything a man could ask for is included in Las Vegas, the greatest movie of all time. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. I personally own 3 different copies. I got I got a Blu-ray copy. I got a DVD copy. I got a digital copy. I've seen it about 300 times. And if you haven't watched the movie yet, now's the time, because last I checked, it is on Prime Video. In fact, I watched it. Don't tell my boss. I watched it in the studio earlier this week. We had it on. We had the games on one TV. We had Las Vegas on another TV. And I was locked the F in to Las Vegas. So go check it out. That's where the intro has come. So many one-liners. I could go all day, but I'm going to choose not to. I'm going to let you discover that for yourself. All right. That's going to do it for me. Episode 5 of the Restricted Area. Robert Guerra, Rob G, if you're nasty. Check us out next week. Chris Broussard is popping on. And again, as always, follow, subscribe, Recliner Media, YouTube. Check out my Instagram. Check out my Twitter @theproducerRG. Until next time, peace out.